Hi, my name is Kristen Riess, and I'm a fourth-year biomedical engineering major and TM scholar. I want to thank you for the opportunity to present my service project to you today, and I want to start off by saying that I believe we can create the next by investing into our surrounding community. So I want to ask you the question, how difficult would it be for you to do your job every day without access to Wi-Fi or a laptop? Now, pre-COVID times, you might be able to use the public Wi-Fi at a coffee shop to send an email, or you might be able to go into a public library in order to be able to enter into a Zoom call. However, post-COVID, we're in an increasingly digital and remote world, making students who relied on their public school system to complete digital assignments at a complete disadvantage. So going into the socioeconomics of Atlanta, there's a huge remote learning disparity. Atlanta leads the nation in income inequality and lack of economic mobility. 29% of African American families in Atlanta fall below the poverty line, as compared to only 2% of non-Hispanic whites. In addition, 53% of Atlanta's population is part of the African American community. And yet there's an income inequality ratio of 3 to 1. Non-Hispanic white families make on average $80,000 in Atlanta, whereas African American families make less than $30,000 per year. And out of those households that make less than $30,000 a year, almost 40% do not have access to internet at home. Thus, when Atlanta decided to move to complete distance learning on August 24th, it put these students at a very large digital inequality and a huge disadvantage. It was challenging to provide equal access to remote learning tools such as laptops, Wi-Fi, and students are now unable to complete their coursework. And so the future implications are, first off, low-income students are at a major disadvantage as compared to students who have access to these tools. They're now less likely to attend higher education institutions, and they're now at a higher chance of being held back or withdrawing due to lack of equal opportunities here. And so I propose that a way that Georgia Tech can begin to help our surrounding community is to host public study hours. And this is something that would not cost Georgia Tech a lot of money. We would just need the space and the resources that we already have for Georgia Tech students. We would start by having a study space. So this could take form of lecture halls after classes are over, where the rooms are already empty and not in use that we could provide to the public school community. We could also use the laptops that we already have that our students are able to check out and just use those laptops to service our public school community during those times. We would also give these students Wi-Fi access, as well as we would host these study hours at off-peak hours to minimize any extra contact with faculty or students. They would also have access to printers to print resumes, to work on college applications, and things of that nature. And we would rely on our Greek community to be volunteers to kind of facilitate these study hours. And the Greek community already has service hours that are requirements, so leaning on them for support, I think, would be something that's very feasible. And because we are inviting the Atlanta public school community, I wanted to bring up some safety precautions that we can take during COVID-19 in order to minimize any extra threat from a community coming in. So first, we would institute hand sanitizing stations and require students to sanitize their hands before entering into the study space. We would also do temperature checks pre-entry to ensure that they're not exhibiting any symptoms before coming in. We could also adequately social distance in larger lecture halls. So a lecture hall that has a capacity of over 200 students, we could still fit 40 students into that lecture hall and have an adequate 6-foot distance. And we would also require that masks are mandatory for this. And so moving forward, the first step is to address the immediate need. So there are so many lives that we can make an impact on that cost us virtually nothing. And I suggest that we start by having a study session either during their midterms or finals so that they can have a safe space to come and study and use the public Wi-Fi and use laptops if they need to. And we can also explore a bi-weekly or a monthly study session depending on space availability, which would be something that students would, I believe, really take advantage of during this time. And then going into the future, I believe that we can cater study sessions towards resume workshops, investigate opportunities for SAT prep, as well as looking into college essay prep, and even leaning into our Greek community to see if they would be interested in looking at essays remotely or even volunteering in person to edit essays. And lastly, even looking into interview prep as students begin to apply to college institutions. And lastly, the step 3 of this plan would be to partner with on-campus organizations. Many of these students rely on a meal plan through their school, and so they don't have access to lunches like when they did when they were able to attend public school in person. So we could partner with Campus Kitchen for meals potentially, and also look into mentorship opportunities with some of our on-campus students to see if they would be willing to mentor these high school students as they are transitioning into college and just finishing up their last year remotely. And so I propose that we close the technology gap for students who lack the connectivity they need to complete their schoolwork at home, that we change lives, and that we create the next GT applicant. Thank you for your time.